Hey, folks, welcome to the program. I'm your host, Scotty Roberts, and this is the Intrepid radio program. Let's get this ball rolling. Here we go.
Join us every weeknight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. The Intrepid radio program, a Scotty Roberts Productions broadcast.
Hey, folks, welcome to the program. As I said in the preamble, I'm Scotty Roberts. I'm your host. This is my show, the Intrepid radio program. And yes, we are live right now. You can find us over on my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. And I only give that out because those of you who are over in the Facebook and the Instagram and the Twitter or X accounts watching this live, if you want to join the chat room, the best place to do that is to come over to the YouTube channel, where all the regulars are going to start gathering very quickly, and that's where you can get the best conversation. You can chat with us over on Facebook. You can also chat with us over on X or over on Instagram or over on Patreon. The only problem is those chats don't show up in the main chat over on the YouTube channel. So come on over to YouTube, join up, and see you all is here. Field Guy and Susie Q, you're here right now, and I see a whole host of others. You can come in to chat, introduce yourself in the chat room, and come on in and hang out. And so tonight we have a guest, Brian Tseng, and we're going to talk about some kind of wild conspiracy theory types of things, but this is all still, for me, falling under the series we've been doing on the unseen realms. Now, as you know very well, from being on this show for years or for the last week, this series on the unseen realms, I focused more on biblical mystery, but I want you to know that those unseen realms, the stuff of the unseen realms, that goes far and broad beyond just biblical mystery topics. That is a topic that is widespread in world mystery, historical mystery, occult mystery, all of these things that are beneath the surface of the things that we normally experience out there in life. That is what I have meant by the unseen realms. And as you know very well, we've spent the last week, a little bit more than a week, talking about the unseen realms in relation to what you find in biblical mystery. And those of you who haven't heard those, I just want you to understand, too, that when I'm talking biblical mystery, we're not over here preaching the Bible. We're not over here pushing one particular religion or one particular way of viewing things, whether you believe there's only one way or not, but taking something. I went to the Judeo-Christian teachings, mostly because, and again, those that know me well know that I have had my biblical training. I went to seminary, 40 years ago now, when I do the dating, 42 years ago. And I was in ministry for a while in very conservative fundamentalist Baptist settings. And that's what dictated my theology at the time. And I drifted far and afield from that, especially over the last 30 years. And so when I talk about biblical topics, it's for the purpose of really being able to understand some of those things from not just a theological or a religious standpoint, but taking that theology, taking that religion, and putting it into a context with other world religions and other mysteries that are out there. Here, I'm going to put up my proscenium arch, which I neglected to do at the beginning. There you go. Boom. Proscenium arch usually goes over the top of a stage. This is our unproscenium arch, you could call it. So here we are. And so tonight we're going to continue this series on the unseen realms, those things that we don't know much about because, well, like I've said, and you've heard me say many times, I talk about the supernatural a lot, but at the same time, I'm not a huge believer in the supernatural per se by the strict definition of the word because I believe the natural world includes the supernatural. We only label it supernatural because it's things we don't normally see on a daily basis or we don't experience on a daily basis. We're the kind of people in our society that have grown up and we have to do our jobs. We have work to go to 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. We mow our grass, we take out the garbage, we buy our cars and our houses, and we raise our kids and we get the vacation in the RV, hopefully at least once a year. And we just live life without addressing the spiritual. One of the things when I was in ministry was the fact that while you had even went to church every Sunday, unless you got the most faithful churchgoer or synagogue attender or mosque, whatever you do, many people don't carry that spirituality beyond those times that they meet together in those sacred places, those sanctuaries. And when we have a society that's done that, we've kind of pushed out the need for the supernatural, the need for the spiritual. And so by looking at some of these things in the unseen realm, as you all know, I do a hell of a lot of ghost hunting and or we like to call it paranormal investigation, to be hoity-toity about it. Because it was at one time 20 years ago, that was the way you differentiated yourself from just the simple thrill seeker. Oh, well, I don't do ghost hunting. I do paranormal investigation. And so we investigate, we research, and we do all of that. And so Rainey and I have a few things scheduled. I've been saying that for weeks. And we've got some things that we're going to go do, and we're going to make some videos that you can watch and have you join in with us on some of those investigations. But some of the things that I have found that I have only vague familiarity with keep coming up in the periphery of what I do here. When I talk about UFOs, I know a cupful of UFO stuff and I can talk to it, but I have to more or less go by some of the new research that's out there or the people that are out there. What I know about mysteries like Bigfoot. I know a little bit more about Bigfoot. I've even got a Bigfoot casting right back there behind my desk. And so Bigfoot is another one of those issues where I don't know quite enough because most of my focus and my study, my books have been on these biblical mysteries, the Nephilim, the Anunnaki, the reptilian factor. We looked into the Exodus reality and all of that history that goes into ancient Egypt. So that has been my focus. So when I come across these topics, the Montauk project or Montauk project, a conspiracy, quote unquote, that's built out of events that are said to have taken place at the Montauk Air Force Reserve. I'm going to have our guests talk about this more, but that encompass all these different, like our graphic here. If I put that up again for tonight's show, I got to take down my proscenium arch to look at that. It's the question, did the U.S. military experiment in time travel, in teleportation, in mind control, in extraterrestrial contact? Those are all the questions that I'm bringing our guest in tonight to talk about. So without much further babbling on my part, let's get him on here. I'm going to take the arch off of here. I got that up. All that is just showing you this is all my junk. Let's take that down. All my junk. I want to have room to bring Brian in. So if Brian, he's standing out here in the wings, I'm going to bring him in. I'm going to let him do more introduction of himself. which will do a little more justice to what he's bringing to the table. And from there, we'll go into some discussions. So here we go. Hey, Brian, how are you doing tonight?
I'm great, Scotty. Thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure, our first time. I'm so glad our mutual friend Nancy Planeta of
Yes.
Scoochie Media, a longtime member of this community, got to introduce me to you.
Well, I have known Nancy for well over 20 years. We've been friends. And so she is pretty tuned into what I'm doing and what my needs are in this spiritual realm and all that. And we have had so many conversations over the years. It's unbelievable. And she was the one who said, "Have you heard of Brian Tseng?" And I said, "I'm not sure. Forgive me, Brian. I wasn't sure if I'd heard your name before or not, but I knew what the Montauk project was." And then I went, "Oh, yes. Isn't he associated with that thing that I know so very little about?" And so before we roll into that full-fledged, I want to see if I can get a couple of comments from you on this whole idea of the unseen realm, because as I mentioned to you this afternoon, and as I mentioned here in my introductory remarks, the unseen realm is something that I have dealt with for a long time, but more myopically focused into biblical mysteries and things like that. Tell us all, first of all, a little introduction about yourself and what you think about the unseen realms.
Okay, excellent. So, just to introduce myself, I co-organized the 2023 Montauk Adventure Tour last summer. It was the 80th anniversary of the Philadelphia experiment, along with James Rink and many other survivors and people who were part of the Montauk Project. The military code name was the Phoenix Project or Project Phoenix.
Okay.
But it's popularly known as the Montauk Project, and it's whitewashed. Hi, Susie Q, and uh, kind of shown in a very again whitewashed version in the TV show Stranger Things. But they don't. Hey, Phil Guy, but they don't get. And I
Let me
saw
keep
Phil
coming in
Guy's.
here.
I saw his appeal. Oh, Randall Flagg. That's from the Stephen King book, The Stand. I
There
love
you
that book.
go.
Yeah. So, um, but I co-organize that more as because I'm coming as an organizer. I've been told by people in the community, hey, they have recollection of me in a certain program or this or that. I personally have no zero recollection, so I don't hang my hat on any of that. I don't totally discount it either, especially when
Sure.
multiple people say, different things that they haven't spoken to each other. But um, it's my analysis and many other people that we're never going to have our Star Trek future unless we have disclosure of the reality of the good, the bad, and the ugly of our government, especially the rogue elements of our governments, and the ETs, especially the negative agenda, service to self types, as opposed to the service to other types.
Right.
Okay. And all the dirty dealing that's actually hidden away the technology. It's been used to suppress and exploit humanity. Thanks to things like the Military Secrets Act after World War II, many people have been assassinated or otherwise somehow neutralized and removed from the scene when they've got clean energy engines and things like that. So,
Do you
you know,
believe that we are? I grew up, by the way, I am old enough that for being 26, I've got quite a lengthy history of decades behind me.
mhm.
So I grew up in the late 60s, the early 70s, watching Star Trek, which you mentioned.
Yep.
My hero, of course, was Captain Kirk.
Mhm.
And I always grew up with that. Once it passed out of childhood fantasy and it grew into that, a curiosity about what we can be doing. You mentioned making that Star Trek future. Do you believe that, just in a nutshell, do you believe that that kind of future is something that is realistic? Do you believe the life is out there in the universe? Do you believe the ability for us to eventually attain that? And do you believe, I've heard tons of people talk about the Galactic Federation that we aren't part of yet. and things like
Yeah.
that. What's your quick belief on this?
Oh, geez. Okay. So 100% all that is going to happen. We are bound for that and destined for that in the higher timeline, which I believe we're on. Okay. And essentially, Gene Roddenberry was sitting in on telepathically channeled sessions back in the 60s. Might have even been earlier. That's where that information, such as a prime directive, came from. And then other people who are in touch with the so-called Galactic Federation types, at least through channeling. So a lot of this, but these are very long, involved telepathic communications. So when you read the full version of the prime directive, as written and shared by Elena Denon. I don't agree with everything she has to say. I'm very wary of the whole Anunnaki angle that she seems to be coming from, but I'm not anti, Elena, and I certainly agree with her, the prime directive. I've seen a lot of that material elsewhere or similar. So that's absolutely real. And then the deal is that just like here at third density consciousness reality on Earth, and I can talk about the densities and the law of one and how it relates to the Bible and where we are today, draw that lineage from then to now. And even before then, you essentially have humanity here on Earth, and we've been a pawn in this game between mostly the Draco reptilians and the Anunnaki and the Greys working under the Dracos and the Anunnaki on more the negative exploitive side for going back thousands, if not millions of years.
Yes.
And this is the Bible, and then the Elohim. It's a mixture of the Anunnaki and perhaps more benevolent ETs throughout thousands of years of history, and then they recorded it, and then you get the King James version of the Bible, and he was a Freemason apparently. Right. So make of that what you will, right? So this is and so I'm as a younger believer, if you will, there's a lot to make sense of and to wade through, and then you bring in the ET side and Atlantis and Lemuria and the law of one, and things get very interesting, but they also become much more clear than where I was, say, 5 years ago.
Sure.
Okay. Let's see. You were asking about, and then on the positive side, the Galactic Federation types. So just so you know, there's going to be lots of groups out there calling themselves X, Y, or Z. Some of them may actually be X, Y, or Z. Many are going to be masquerading as X, Y, or Z. Many of them are going to be, we're the Galactic Federation from this sector of the stars. No, wait, we're the Galactic Federation. We're like this sector of the stars, but we don't like the Klingon group. They leave them out of our Galactic Federation. So we're the A and B Galactic Federations, and then now throw in like the darker groups who they mean very bad intentions for all of us, and then they're masquerading as we're the Galactic Federation, and just they're wearing a mask, right?
How much of that do you think is on the physical level, like starships, galactic travel, things like that, versus a more consciousness level or a little bit
physical? It's everything from third density consciousness, which is like physical ships and craft, to more fourth and fifth and higher density, where now you're getting into the light ships. They're like light craft. So when they're picked up on camera, it literally looks like a flashlight. You're staring in a flashlight lens. And it's like, oh, that's CGI. And it's really bad CGI because all the person could do is a bright blob on the screen. It's like, or actually that's just a higher dimensional light ship, and it can only be depicted on our cameras as a bright blob that you can't make heads or tails of, right? So absolutely, because you've got everyone down here who are contactees, people who are survivors or whistleblowers of these secret space programs, people who've been on the ships. Here, let's see, my own random mystery conspiracy. I would have dreams with the star maps, right? Once I saw stars shaped as 33 with M33 to top, right? There's a galaxy M33. I think it's Sombrero Galaxy. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's
which I've heard of, but couldn't.
Yeah,
quote
it's
any
beautiful.
Of
It
it
looks like a big. Yeah. Yes, and exactly, and just like you got the Sirius A and B as revealed by the Dogon tribes of Africa.
Yes.
Right. Yes. Known way before astronomers knew.
That was that's why Laird Scranton wrote about the Dogon very early on. Oh, there you go.
I've got ET related artifacts and stones with different carvings and patterns and designs, from friends like
Is that
Anthony.
one
Yeah.
the head Mexican?
Yes,
Because
Huejotla
I've got some
stones.
from that
Yes,
same collection.
exactly,
So
exactly. These are my friends Anthony Mickle and Josh Sisler, among others, go down to Mexico, and with a blessing of the local villagers, get to excavate these and share them out,
back
share benefits with the tribe
starting in
or village.
2012, I did 5 years in a row. We did a symposium, the Paradigm Symposium, and we'd have people like the cast of Ancient Aliens and
Hmm.
Scott Walter and all these different authors would come in. And there was one guy that came as a vendor that had several tables full of those artifacts. And Scott Walter from America Unearthed, the first day he bought the entire collection. And the guy said, "I've had a good weekend. Thank you." so, um, so Scott Walter, I know, was looking into a lot of that stuff. That was, God, that was 10 years ago now,
Yeah, it's
2014.
amazing. It's priceless. The stuff is priceless, and if you can afford it and support the people and the villages and curate it well and share it there,
Yeah.
that's what they want.
Yeah. And I've got one big piece left somewhere. It's not on display right now, and I don't know, frankly, where it is. It's
Yeah, we only
packed
have so
away
much
somewhere.
room to display all our
I
amazing.
know. I've got all my Egyptian artifacts over there and stuff there, and then books lining everything. And it's like I'm running out of space. And I'm like, honey, I need to start decorating the living room. And she's like, oh, no, you aren't. So that's how that goes. So let's start to move this and segue it into the Montauk. I don't even say it right. I
It's a
think the
Montauk project. Yeah, you
Montauk
want me to
project.
share? Let me share my screen, Scotty.
All right.
This should be interesting here. All right, you gotta share my screen, entire screen. Gonna allow. Okay, so we got actually here, Brookhaven National Laboratory, and then also um, the Philadelphia experiment. Okay,
All
and I'm
right.
going to kind of give you like the lineage of
All right.
where this all comes from.
Okay.
Okay, and then I guess the third thing would be Nazi or NZI UFOs. Okay,
All right.
all right.
Nazis.
The Nazis in Chicago, wherever,
Yep, there you
Illinois.
go.
Okay, so essentially what happened is right in the lead up of World War II, as the mustache guy here was coming to power in post World War One Depression, Weimar Republic Germany, you had a beautiful lady named Maria Orsic, and she was extremely telepathic and beautiful. Okay. And she was
Yeah.
getting telepathic communications, apparently from the star system Aldebaran, from what would be known as like the Aldebaran, I'm probably not spelling that right, Nordics. Okay, so these kind of look like the Scandinavian types, like like that.
Okay. Yes, I've seen
Okay,
some material on these.
and for whatever reason, via Maria, they were sharing information for how to build these craft, including Hitler's Bell Die Glocken,
Right.
and then also these like UFOs of like the Panzer turrets, and then like mounted with the guns. Okay,
I
and
remember pictures of
yeah,
those.
right. So what happened was the Nazis weren't able to produce enough of these towards the end of World War II to officially turn the tide, by building these in factories while they're getting attacked by especially the Soviets from the east, and then the Western allies from the west. Okay, so what they did is they moved to a base in Antarctica known as New Schwabenland.
Okay.
Okay, and then that's where we get Operation High Jump, where Admiral Byrd took a naval carrier group down to Antarctica, so supposedly to do research, right? He takes a
Right,
naval
right.
carrier, and if you go to, and I'm a huge uh, friend and subscriber and supporter of Farsight Institute. They literally did blind remote viewing on Operation High Jump, and
Oh,
they've got like a whole 2 hour movie where like 3 or 4 remote viewers give the blow by blow of how basically as Admiral Byrd's fleet or group was approaching Antarctica, they never even got near this New Schwabenland base. These Nazi UFOs come out of the water and like they're shooting like laser beams and stuff and like just destroy them all. Just total defeat. Barely
they are
anyone made it back.
brave.com. Is that the website?
Oh no, this is just a search engine.
Oh, okay.
I prefer to Google. If you have to, you go to Google for maps
What's
and
that
other
website? I'd like to
things.
put that out here for people.
Brave. Well, Brave is a
Yeah, where
search
they've got
engine.
their I think you were looking at a list of videos that they
Oh,
put up there.
Farsight. Oh
That
no, okay, this one. This is a Farsight Institute, and
Farsight Institute.
yes, the Farsight Institute. And you go to farsightprime.com, and one of their main and most talented remote viewers, Yemi Janae, she was a presenter this year at my Full Disclosure Now conference,
All right.
which I hosted in Florida. And I'm doing another one this coming year to take the survivors. I'll show right here where my presenters actually. Um, the presenters list might have been. Oh, here we go. Like Arkeem Ra was there at the Montauk Project at Camp Hero on the east end of Long Island. Okay, so what happened is when we got our butts kicked at with Operation High Jump, around then, I don't know if it was before then or around then, actually 1943, so it was like right before then, you had the Philadelphia experiment. They were already trying to play catch up. Okay, they were using
All right.
Tesla technology where they took the USS Eldridge, okay, took a Tesla coil generator, put one on each end, and fired them up with sailors on board off the coast or port of Philadelphia, okay, without the blessing of Nikola Tesla. He and this other scientists pulled out of that project. And when they fired it up, it was supposedly to achieve radar invisibility, but the reality is did they take it away? I've got the real life sailors. Let me go to Google and search it.
All right.
But um,
I think I've heard what happened instead of radar invisibility, and I think some people might have an idea of what that was. But
they ripped a hole through time and space, and they jumped around and went places they weren't supposed to go. And while in subspace or wherever, the sailors, their physical bodies could merge and be like in the ship, like you're astrally traveling, right? Except when they cut the generators and came out, this is what happened. I've been told this is a real photo. This is not out of
okay,
I've been told this is like a movie reenactment, maybe, but this is real. This colorized photo,
interesting.
that's real. Okay, and then there's another one where they're coming out of the hull, and that one, this one is apparently very real.
So
Okay.
what happened that made that happen?
So that basically we exist in multi-dimensional existence in universe. Okay, and so by firing up the generators, they tore a hole into time and space as we know it, and we as humanity are generally used to through 3D density,
Right.
time and space and consciousness. Okay, so you've got dimensions of existence and being, and you've also got densities of consciousness and being. And then they also kind of interrelate, and that's a whole other
Sure.
subject that I'm not even really qualified to speak to. But
Densities of consciousness and being. Let me write
yes,
that down so I can do a
yeah.
show on that.
So essentially, like first density consciousness is like mud is lower first density to like rocks, and then crystals would be the highest of first density consciousness.
Okay.
Second density is like nasty, creepy crawlies and parasites and bugs, and then higher plants, and then like animals, and then like really like evolved from spiritually plants and animals. Is higher second density. Lower third density is like crappy human beings who have like rapey, kill, murder, steely instincts that, versus like your middle of the road third density consciousness. That's most people where we are transitioning to higher third density, where we're more evolved. Maybe we're getting more telepathic abilities and abilities to heal people by praying for each other and laying on of hands and things like that. Now you're lower fourth density. That's like, yeah, you're telepathic, but you're using it to like take advantage of people in nightclubs and casinos. So like your middle of the road fourth density to like your higher fourth density, you're telepathic and you're really nice and conscious and you want to help everybody, right? So like, and you're evolving into like group mind telepathy. Lower fifth density would be like group mind consciousness, and I'm just paraphrasing this, okay? Would be like nasty group mind collectives that are, again, steely, rapey, murdery, exploitive, and
Right.
takey. And then you've got your middle of the road, and then your higher, like getting to like the angelic group minds. And then sixth density, like lower that, but group minds interfacing with group minds, maybe across times and spaces and densities and dimensions, to the middle of the road, to the higher expression. And then seventh, eighth, all that, that's like God consciousness and beings and densities of consciousness.
Very interesting, and maybe you've heard what he has to say about it. Maybe you don't like him at all, because there's quite a mixed reactions when you bring up his name. We had I just brain farted away his name. Globalist, I did this before, and now I can't remember his name. You see him all
Ray
the time.
Kurzweil, or is he
highly political?
Klaus Schwab?
No,
the German guy.
Why am I slipping on his name?
We just
Alex
described
Jones. Alex Jones.
Alex Jones. Oh, Alex Jones. Okay.
Alex Jones has come out and talked about this kind of thing, this consciousness thing, and just coincidentally, today I was working on something and I had the radio playing or YouTube's playing, and I saw an interview with Joe Rogan interviewing Tucker Carlson. Both very highly political characters, so people have drawn their opinions on them. All three of them, actually. And Joe played some thing of a video of Alex Jones from 10 years ago, and talking about things that are happening. And Tucker Carlson actually came out for all his politics. He was a big proponent of when all this UFO stuff started happening with the Tic Tac films, things like that. And he came right out and said he was talking about being a firm believer in all of this alien stuff and extraterrestrial stuff and stuff you're starting to talk about, which surprised me because I've only really heard him as a politico and about consciousness and all of that. And they played this stuff from Alex Jones, who seems to be, and Tucker Carlson said, I believe, he said, Alex Jones has his shtick over here. And sometimes, he says, I've heard him talk, he says, where I believe he's just channeling consciousness. He's channeling some of the stuff that he was talking about, what you just described, all those different levels of consciousness.
Let me speak to that.
All right.
Alex Jones, everybody. The reason why you're hearing from Alex Jones, Brian Tseng, the Solar Bee, whoever, Dolores Cannon, Edgar Casey, probably Rudolf Steiner, many people, is because the law of one, the Emerald Tablets, even though Thoth eventually probably was a fallen being, whatever. This knowledge, I believe, is accurate and correct. And so if it's universal, there's a reason why you're going to hear things over and over. Having said that, what I like to say is, whatever you're hearing, take what you're hearing and the content, and then take who you're hearing it from, and always be ready to separate it at any given time.
There you go.
Because all those names you mentioned, Alex, Joe, and Tucker, and in general for what we have to offer in the mainstream media, I like them, and they're more at the top of what they're of the pickings, right? And in each of their own way, they have been banned and shunned and messed with, but then in other ways, they seem to be very well monetized and doing great, but maybe I just sound sore because, hey, I haven't been on any of their shows yet, right?
Yeah,
but,
right.
But having said that, where you got to be careful is because if any day should one of those personalities do something really crazy or wonky or somehow discredited, it's dangerous when people take all the good teaching that they have and throw it out with the bathwater, because you say,
Right.
well, gee, there's a recording of this saying this, or it turns out they're compromised in this way, or they have a picture of them, doing the one-eyed sign 25 years ago. So who knows?
Right.
So I always caution people, that's part of the discernment thing category.
And I get that, because there are some people who can, and I've talked about this many times, is there are some people that can disseminate great information and maybe getting it from source, but at the same time, not somebody everybody appreciates or likes. So sometimes if you're getting information and then somebody looks at you and say, but aren't you the same guy who screwed all those people back then 30 years ago? How can you be getting a good message? So I get what you mean, that there are political things, there are societal things, there's all these different things that.
Let me give you an example.
Yeah.
There's a gentleman out there who he really is channeling. Okay. His name begins with a B. It's not me. Okay. And he's seemingly brought in a lot of higher galactic information from like a race of gray ETs. And I'm not saying
Okay.
all gray ETs are bad. However, then on the same time, on his website, he is a huge proponent of whatever the CDC and NIH and whatever says, and who, and say about rolling up your sleeves and taking the cocktails.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so there's someone where on the one hand, it seems like 95% of their teachings are great and amazing, and we resonate with it. And then he says, when people ask him in the middle of this hysteria and the scamdemic, what do we do? What do we do? He says, well, go ahead and listen to your health authorities and roll up your sleeves. And that's a perfect example of what I would call a Trojan horse.
Got it.
Okay, so that's definitely out there, and that's to be concerned. Or there's a certain new age streaming service where they tried to pay someone to say, we're going to pay you more money, we're going to give you more airtime on our subscriber-based new age streaming service, making lots of money. But from now, every now and then, you got to play ball by inserting messages for us. And my friend Johnny Enoch said to the executive producer of this certain unnamed,
I've heard of Johnny.
Right, what kind of messaging would you like me to insert? And this executive producer said to him, oh, for example, that humanity someday will have to give up our sovereignty. And Johnny says, F no, I'm not going to say that. Get out of here.
Exactly.
And he cut ties with that group, and it got ugly from there.
Sarah Yusuf has a good question here. And we've kind of lightly touched on this. How does emotional and moral energy affect these interdimensional densities? It sounds like a type of guiding manipulation.
Well, when you talk guiding and manipulation, it's kind of like when I go and brush my teeth and I guide the toothbrush and toothpaste to my mouth. Am I guiding and manipulating? It's like
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say, in terms of guiding and manipulating, it really depends. Guiding and manipulating, right, I would say is good. Manipulating is bad. Okay. So in terms of moral energy, right, when you're talking about universal principles, things that are consistent with freedom, free will, and divine expression, and the law of one, right, where we all come from source and we'll all eventually return to source. In the meantime, we're all interconnected, right? When you're vibrating higher in truth, right, that is going to carry with it energy. Just like if you're vibrating lies, deceit, slander, you're enraged.
So what you're saying is there is a moral energy to these densities, because you want to say
a quantum interlock, I would say a quantum interlock. Because higher realms vibrate at higher energies. And if you're down here vibrating at a higher energy and you're resonating with a truth that exists in a higher realm, and you're manifesting that truth down here, as above, so below. Okay. Then then you're quantum interlocking. And then you, from across the universe, interdimensionally, doesn't matter. You are literally interlocked with whatever entity, consciousness, energy, vibration, frequency that is. If you're truly interlocked with,
Okay.
right? Many would argue prayer is when you're interfacing with the divine and
Interlock.
calling that down, right? And that's a
Right.
quantum interface if you want to use physics or science, right? Just like with the lower densities, those who are summoning or calling upon lower beings, and they're willing to do anything to get, whatever, revenge, this someone that they covet, fame, fortune, whatever, money, that will then interlock with those densities, and then guess what you're attracting to yourself. And then sure,
Right.
the third density consciousness, if you don't have your third eye open, well, it's just ho hum, I'm just here brushing my teeth, getting up in the morning, going to work, driving my car. Meanwhile, if you're vibrating in negativity and just you'll give anything for whatever and you'll throw whoever under the bus, well, it's quite possible you're surrounding yourself with negative beings, negative entities. What do you think you're going to get? And that's also consistent with the law of attraction, And then likewise, if you're vibrating at a higher consciousness, you're projecting love. When you vibrate with love, that's detectable with your heart, your aura, and your
Sure is.
vibration. My one housemate and business partner, he can see auras, you know, and his ability to see that, and I'll question him. I'll ask him, what's that what's that person's aura, like that person's sketchy or that person's really cool, and he was like, whoa, that person I've had like a super bright aura, or they had a really dark aura, or for some reason the aura is shielded and he can see everyone else's but he can't see theirs. So there's a lot of physics to this, or things, experiments you can do to quantify this. He can also telepathically speak with their dogs. He's an animal communicator. The things they say are
Interesting.
hilarious. And I challenge people on this. You think, oh, this guy is so funny. He's got buddies who talk to dogs or whatever. If you have multiple dogs, what you do is you take your dogs, and let's say you got one in the room with you hanging out, and the other
Yeah.
2 or 3 are out and about, and you are about to like feed like something really yummy to the dog that's in the room with you, and the other dogs are outside the house. They cannot smell whatever you're going to offer, and they can't hear it, they can't see it, but they all come
Yep.
stampeding into the room as one. That's because Jaden says, yeah, like especially bacon, like when one says bacon, they all get into this bacon, 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 bacon telepathic
Right.
cycle because they're all thinking it. He says it's really annoying. It's hilarious.
I need to learn how to talk to my dog. We've got a great dog. We've had her for 6 years since she was a pup. She's a pug and mini English bulldog mix. So she's taller, doesn't have the squished face. She's pretty dog. We just a week ago took in a foster dog that's a pug something mix, brindley colored, and she's the same age. And she is, I don't think we're going to keep her around very long. We keep trying with her. She wants to bite you if you
I just want to recommend Regina Perlmutter.
You're gonna have to crow
I'll
mutter.
share
How
Pearl,
appropriate.
Pearl. Like here, I'm going to share my screen.
Oh, all right.
Let me come back because she's so good. She's actually the first person who was telepathically communicating with their dogs, and then Jaden picked up on how to do it. And then when they telepathically do that, um,
because I've often
it
wondered
makes
if
them
I could
stronger.
telepathically talk to my dogs,
This
I
guy
would.
is amazing.
Regina
F. Perlmutter.
Mutter. How
Yes.
appropriate if she talks to dogs. Mutter.
Oh yeah, among other things. Divinehealingplace.com is her website. And she's amazing.
All right.
And then also I could take us back to the Montauk project too, and kind of.
Yes, please. Yeah, we're going to work our way back there. So.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So basically, with the Philadelphia experiment, and then later Operation High Jump, it's like, okay, everyone's like UFO fighting. The UFO wants to get involved. Okay, so from when they realized that yes, they can tear holes in time and space, there's something to this Tesla technology. What they did is they went over to Brookhaven National Labs over there on Long Island, New York. So, in this geography will kind of help us a bit here. Okay. So, first of all, got the East Coast of the United States of America.
All right.
I grew up in I was born in Philadelphia and grew up around
All
the
right.
New Hope, Bucks County, Pennsylvania
Bucks
area.
County. I got a
Yeah,
story about Bucks County. So
yeah, yeah. And then somewhere, right, Philadelphia, I don't know if like somewhere the Delaware or where they did the experiment for the original with the USS Eldridge. But when they figured out that that stuff worked, they moved over to Brookhaven National Laboratories in the center part of Long Island, New York, and look at like these circular
yes.
like particle accelerator type looking things.
Yeah.
Okay, right. And so if you watch the TV show Stranger Things, you see Hawkins Laboratories run by the Department of Energy. That's basically Brookhaven National Laboratory. Okay, and what they were doing is they wanted to figure out how to mess with this Tesla technology to open up doors into time and space. And then that's where you get things like Project Pegasus and Andrew Basiago going back to the Gettysburg Address and Ford's Theater to see Lincoln's assassination.
See,
And,
that's fascinating to me. The ability to be able to do something like that. I'm an historian.
Okay.
And so this is just totally sidelining and off the dirt path over here. If I had the ability to be able to go back to look at things in the past, you're saying these people have it's like a remote viewing type of thing that they're doing?
No. So remote viewers, they're just viewing, right?
Okay.
In the case of Project Pegasus, they literally were opening up portals.
So they were physically walking through a Stargate type of thing.
Yes.
Whatever it might be.
And the early Stargate technology is not good for your health. And it wasn't necessarily instantaneous. And the further you wanted to go in time and space, the longer you were in this whatever subspace, and you had to drink lots of water because it just took all this water like molecules out of your physical body, and it's very damaging to your health.
Was it kind of like the totally fictional movie, but it came out a while back, 10, 15 years ago, Timeline, where they went back into the medieval period. It had the Scottish comedian played in it as smaller part. Actually, was a father that went back in time. And
so I'm going to say it right now, time travel is not fictional. Time travel is real.
Okay.
And there's
I meant the movie itself was
a
fictional
I know.
So
these movies are a lot of these movies. I know it sounds wild, people. They actually are disclosure. A lot of these big directors and studios, guess what? When they're throwing 100 million, 200 million, 300 million plus dollars at a script, okay, that script didn't just get pulled out of someone's butt. Okay, some of these scripts were, and then the government loves to use Hollywood for Operation Paperclip. Not Paperclip, sorry, Mockingbird. Paperclip was when they brought the Nazis over through the rat lines and all that. Mockingbird to insert whatever messaging they want for better or worse.
And we used to wonder that for years when, at the time when Independence Day came out, a somewhat higher level campy UFO.
Yeah, well, I can tell you about that.
Yeah.
The aliens depicted in Independence Day are actually a depiction of what are known as, apparently, I've been told, it's the Negumac. And they're actually more neutral. They're not like evil and parasitic. And they scare the living crap out of the reptilians because they're one of the few races the Draco reptilians fear. Because if you're a giant alligator being, sometimes with wings and a tail that can like snap people in half, like what are you afraid of? Those beings depicted in Independence Day, and also as depicted in Die Another Day or Rinse, Repeat or whatever, that Tom Cruise movie. And then Tom Cruise is very much involved in these programs.
I can imagine that he is.
As is Kevin Spacey.
All of this stuff, how do you answer the question? Or do you just avoid it and say, I don't have to answer that? Because the first thing, even me, somebody who is I don't want to use the word believer because that means faith. Somebody, though, who accepts that these things are real, but with a skeptical edge because I've never experienced them, I've never seen them. I'm one of those guys that are going to see it, touch it, taste it, feel it, handle it, talk to it.
So I'm going to give you a really rough one, and I don't
Okay.
usually recommend this, but I think
All right.
you're of sound enough mind and body and soul that you could handle it.
I
But
can.
literally, go get something legal online, probably like Aya caps. I haven't
Okay.
tried this, but they're like ayahuasca caps.
Oh,
Okay, or which is
you can
basically
get those in the store. Get your
you can,
ayahuasca
it's
caps.
on
They're our new
Facebook. You can order
sponsor.
them online. Yeah, and it's totally
Wow.
legal. It's totally legal plant medicine where it's like basically you take
Interesting.
DMT and they like alkalinize it or whatever to stabilize it, and then it doesn't metabolize anywhere near as fast as DMT does in the 10 or 15 minutes breakdown when you're taking massive amounts if you're trying to smoke DMT, for example. But my advice
There it
is
is right there.
do literally if you've ever done a DMT trip or ayahuasca
I
or
have
magic
never
mushrooms.
done.
Okay, you've never had a psychedelic experience ever.
I've never had a psychedelic experience.
Okay, so
That
then
does not mean I have not craved one and wanted to do one. I had a
okay, okay,
good
so then
Native American friend once took me
have
to
you
a
ever had a wild
lodge. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
have you ever had a wild dream experience?
Yes.
Like super wild, like
Yes.
super like you could have sworn it was real. It was more
Yes.
real than real. Okay, so those are like the kind of the two things that where it's just like the lay person who's like, and I understand, like I've got friends, they can see auras, they can see shadow people.
Sure.
I bitch and whine, I can't, whatever. I'm told it's actually for my better, my protection. I probably would have been taken as a rookie by now if I had some of those
Uh,
abilities available at this point. But whatever. So
by the way, that's a link
yeah.
to your ayahuasca tabs right there.
Oh yeah, okay.
Made by
You know,
who is it? Perennis, Perennis, Perensis is the company. So
yeah.
it looked like the same bottle you held up. That's
Okay, if it's eye
interesting.
caps, yeah. And but that's one way, and the other thing is, there's also all those ghost hunters and wannabe ghost hunters and paranormal explorers out there. Don't go to a haunted site relying on like your spirit box. Like if you're gonna go, make sure you've got someone who really is psychically sensitive. You research a site, you know what you're doing. You're going with the right intentions, and you're not
Yes.
going to like try to capture spirits on video. That's disrespectful. If you want to research and maybe try to communicate with them and help them pass over with inconsistent with the highest good, greatest good, then I think that's different, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's dicyanin goggles that I've got on eBay, and which apparently do work. They talk about these from the Vietnam War. It was an early version of night vision
Okay.
where they're trying to give it to the helicopter pilots so their night vision wouldn't get messed up if they saw bright lights. So
Okay.
they're dyed like kind of like a purpley dark red. Okay, and this is a recreated formula from some German lab.
All right.
Okay, and the reason why they were recalled very rapidly, literally during the Vietnam War, you can look this up, was apparently reports are the helicopter pilots started going crazy. They started seeing demons and stuff flying in the air of
Oh
the
boy.
battlefield. They started unloading on them and flying their helicopters. Okay, didn't matter
Just
who.
through the
Yeah,
goggles, not
yeah,
drugs, not anything.
no. And this is probably one reason why they smeared the children with erythromycin because it takes away your ability because to see in that bandwidth.
Interesting.
Okay,
Now you've got a pair, so you've obviously used them. Have you
I
seen?
So I've been warned not to wear them for long periods of time. I've only worn them extremely briefly. My one roommate, the one who sees auras, he's psychically sensitive. At first, I'm like, I'm not sure these do anything. And he's like, wait a second, we wear these for a while. He's like, yeah, they mess with you. Don't wear them too long. Like they
Oh.
do stuff. Yes.
Hmm.
And you're warned specifically from the guy on eBay. It's not just like a gimmick, like, oh yeah, be careful, kids, don't wear this too long. Like hyping it up. No, he's like for real, like don't wear them for too long. You may start to see things that may alter your perceptions, and if you're not used to it, especially as a beginner, you're not to do that.
Now, is that something that they attribute that to? If you're stepping out of the spiritual realm and somebody who's trying to be skeptical of it or whatever, are they going to say, "Well, that's because you're doing this and this to your optic nerve, and it does that to your
Well,
brain"?
what
And
I would
so,
argue, what I would argue is the so-called spiritual realm isn't that far away from our reality, and that
I
veil
believe
is in
that.
fact thinning and dropping. And as our vibrations and density increase, we are as humanity are going to see more and more, especially when we're under situations of extreme duress or whatever. And so, already there are people out there who they can see this. And what I love is going to these conferences and events. You can get 2 or 3 different psychics and question them separately. Like if one was like, I'll give you an example: Journey to Truth conference, Rebels of Disclosure conference thrown by the Journey to Truth guys, Aaron Kuhn and Tyler Koala, who they have an amazing podcast, which is constantly censored and shadow banned. And it's how I got
Nice.
turned on to listen to a lot of, learned about a lot of this stuff initially, thanks to them.
Coons and Koala.
Tyler Koala and Aaron Kuhn of the Journey to Truth podcast.
Journey to Truth. I'm just gonna put some of these down so I don't forget some of this.
Oh, these are gems. Oh yeah, I'm giving you the gems. And so
there it is.
What was it on their podcast? What are they talking about? I was just going to mention what. Oh yeah. At their conference in Grafton, Illinois, earlier this spring. In all the presenters were speaking in the one main room with like 70 or 80 of us seated in it, and we were talking about how at the campfire later on that night, 2 or 3 of the different people who were there, including Margie K and Kira Ingalls.
No Margie K.
Yeah, and maybe another person. She's very psychically gifted. She can see stuff. And they were both talking about how they were both seeing like blue orbs, like lights flying around the top of the ceiling. Okay. And their consensus was that those were positive galactics sending monitoring drones to basically get high def recordings of our proceedings and to be there and to be present. Okay. Also, when Katie, her name, she goes like Katie in the chorus. Okay. Yeah, that's right. Psychedelic experience is extremely dangerous for people. They're not meant on the chart. That's why, of course, you have to be very sound of soul, mind, and body. I think Scotty applies, and everyone listening, yes, you definitely be very, very careful. Any questions before doing any of this, feel free to reach out to me.
Right.
And I may 9 out of 10 times tell you no, but anyway, or I'm just under the right. It has to be right. Don't force it.
Hold on, Elvis, you not catching something? Do we have an English setting?
Yeah. What part don't you get there, brother?
Go ahead and just ask direct questions. And
yeah. Speak in plain English. If you have a question, Elvis, type it out, and I'll do my best.
By the way, it's now 10 o'clock. It's top of the hour. 8 o'clock where you are. We generally cut out from here, and we end the radio show and go into the captain's cabin, the after show, which right now, because the radio station we were on, he discontinued the radio station. Now he's going to re-up it, so I don't need to stop the broadcast and move to something different. But we are going to take a little bit of a break. So think about the thing that you want to talk about. Let's get back and have like Elvis or whoever formulate some of your questions. How long can you stick around with us, Brian?
Oh, I've got at least another hour. My wife has given me.
She knows I'm on her show. We generally go to 11 p.m. here, which would be 9 p.m. your time. And so let's just see where it takes us. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to cut out to a break. Those of you who cannot stick around, I want to thank you for being here. We're just going to do, folks, our standard about 2 to 3 minute break, and then we're going to come right back with Brian Tseng, and we're going to continue on with this. So all of you out there that are watching, I want to thank you for being here. If you got a bolt at the end of this show, live long and prosper. And those of you who can stick around, stick around. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
The Intrepid Radio Program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent Talk.
Hey folks, this is Scotty Roberts, and this is the Intrepid Radio broadcast. I've been broadcasting for about 20 years now, covering such topics as science, politics, the paranormal, weird science, weird world history, archaeology, and the paranormal. Everything from ghosts to cryptids to creepy things that go bump in the night. So every week I bring you 3 new episodes. Come and join my channel and also be a patron to this site. So see the details below, and we'll see you here.
Are you looking for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your project. Do you have an awesome self-published book but no cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks? Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company, or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff, and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to ScottAllenRoberts.com. That's Scott with 2 T's, ALANROBERTS.com, to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468-8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hi, my dad. So he can take me to Disneyland.
Dave, I love you, brother.
I miss you too.
I miss you too, I heard.
Yep,
Did you guys hear that?
I heard that.
I miss you, Dave. Well, and welcome to the captain's cabin, everyone. Welcome back. Good to have you here. I'm still sitting here with my guest, Brian Tseng, and we're talking about lots of things, but really focusing and revolving around the Montauk project. And we're going to talk some more. And I want you to be able to, now, as you all know, this is the time of the show where you can call into the show and ask questions, but you can also just type any questions you have over in the chat room. We've got Brian until the top of the hour, so about 52 minutes worth
And
of
I love
Brian
questions. I
What's
love
that?
questions.
Yes.
They're great.
He loves questions. So let's do this. Let's get in here and do it. And by the way, if you want to call in, it's in the description, but I'm going to paste it here anyway in the chat room. You can click on that link or port that link over to a new window, new tab, and you can call into the show. You'll appear down below on my screen, and I can bring you in if I want to.
Yeah.
So, field guy, if you're going to be off topic and talk about girls, well, then.
Yeah.
Anyway, there we go.
Time travel and girls.
Time travel and girls. Yeah. Wasn't there some movie like that? Something about a time traveling hot tub?
Yes.
Yes. I don't remember what it wasn't a porn flick, folks. It was
no, it wasn't. It was like a nostalgic sci-fi 80s kind of period piece.
I want to time travel. I would
Yes.
love to be able to time travel. I mentioned the movie Timeline because you mentioned there were some of this time travel where it broke them down. In that movie, they had a thing where you kept doing this, it would keep breaking down parts of your body, your brain, and there was going to be a point where you couldn't time travel anymore.
I can talk about that. I can talk about that. So apparently, there's a couple of things. Apparently, with the natural stargates or the old ancient system of stargates, there's something known as void sickness. And my friend Audrey Walters talks about this, where some of these stargates, there's safeguards to prevent you from just going back and forth through them to raid across the stargate, whatever's on the other
safeguards.
side.
Who puts those in place?
The builders of the stargates.
Okay.
The cedar races where humanity comes from. Apparently, we have the DNA of 22 different races, including DNA from reptilians. That's where we get our the reptilian part of the brain that's hardwired for survival. Okay, that's the benefit to us, but then it makes us more susceptible to control to some of our lower urges, and that's where the reptilians take advantage of that all the time. So, the fight or flight reaction, for example.
Right.
But in terms of were we talking about I had a couple of directions I wanted to go with that.
Okay.
I was going to take us back to the time travel aspects. That's right.
Yes.
The stargates, if you are going through them with negative intentions, it's possible you can suffer something known as void sickness, where it begins to negatively impact your health.
Well, negative intentions. So the machine is built, or whatever it is, the device that
it's all about vibration. It's all about vibration.
Okay.
So if you're and they have much more intelligent levels of AI and quantum computing and things like that built into that level of technology.
So would it be a negative intention to go back to the First Continental Congress and film them signing the Declaration of "Don't mind me, this is just my little device"?
So it's yes or no. It's yes and no. If you went as a well-meaning academic who wanted to get footage and sure, that'd be fine. If you wanted to go to maybe mess with the timeline somehow, utilize that recording to mess with the timeline, and it was not to the benefit of the timeline nor to humanity, and those are two different things, mind you.
Okay. By the way, thanks, Terry Pitts. Good to have you here, sir. I haven't seen you for a while. Comes in under Robert, but that's Terry.
Okay.
So good to see you, Terry.
Thanks. So there are a couple of things, and this is information that I'm getting from the actual survivors of a lot of these time travel projects. These are the unsung people who, because their testimonies are not whitewashed and because there's a lot of bad and ugly and not very little good in their testimonies, they are. It's because people like myself are trying to get them out of the corners and shadows where they've been kind of stuffed.
So these are not just people that I have this hypothetical person.
No.
You
These are
know
people
some
who've
of
done
these
this.
people. You talk to
They've
them.
been on time travel missions. People like John
Ah.
Whitberg, Arkeem Ra, Rocco Fowler, Alondra Markman. Yeah,
So
people like that.
if time travel, the big question that always comes up, at least pop culturally speaking, if we could time travel, why don't we see people time travel, and why isn't it? Is there something
Let me
very
give you an
different
example.
about?
Let me give you an example because I know you're going to love this one.
All right.
Go to your Bible, not online, but your print Bible on your bookshelf there,
Yeah.
and go to I think it's Isaiah,
Okay.
and it used to say the lion shall lay down with the lamb. Remember? Do you remember that?
Yes.
Well, when you look in there now, and I'll help you find it online, it's now going to say the wolf shall lie down with the lamb.
What? All right. Hang on.
I'm gonna
This
help
is
you
a
find it.
Bible I was given when I was 11 years old, and it went with me all the way through seminary. And Isaiah, where the lion shall lay down with the lamb. Do you know what the exact passage is?
Yeah,
Or-
Isaiah 11:6.
okay, I'm at Isaiah 8, Isaiah 10. This is so full of writing in the margins and stuff from over the years when I was in school. 11 verse 10, you say?
11:6.
11:6 says, "The wolf shall dwell with the lamb." This is a King James version. "The wolf shall dwell with
Do you remember
the
it saying the
lamb."
wolf, bro?
The
Guess
whole
what?
time I was growing up and going to school,
The
it
lion.
talked about the lion lying
Hey,
down with
hey,
the
what? Guess
lamb.
what? Scotty, you're a time traveler, just like me. Welcome to the
What
club.
the fuck?
We're time travelers. That's the
What
Mandela
it's
effect.
so explain that to me. Why
So
does it
what they
say
did, because what they did is they went back in time on some mission, some group, probably through the Montauk project or Project Phoenix, and the nefarious ones probably did that because part of it's really simple. I'm gonna break it down really easy for you, Scotty, and the
all right?
audience. There's what's known as the ascension timeline, where it's positive and it's a higher timeline, and then I don't know whatever it's called, the fallen timeline, the bad negative you don't want to be on it timeline.
Okay.
Okay, and for all this time in human history and then for Earth, these two timelines, think of them as two spirals. And the one spiral is the Christed spiral, which as it spirals, it goes up and out and up and out, all the way up and out, all the way up to the heavens, to the higher dimensions. And then there's a piggybacking spiral that for the longest time is very similar, but it's a fallen Metatronic, I think is what they call it, spiral. And instead of it eventually breaking out at that inflection point and going up towards the heavens, it never breaks out. It becomes regressive or recursive, like an Ouroboros. It
Okay.
eats itself and shrinks back into oblivion. Okay? And the bad guys, those who, per Ephesians, we wrestle not with flesh and
Flesh
blood,
and blood, but with
right,
principalities
powers
and
and
powers and
higher, right,
yeah.
darkness and higher, right. They have been trying this whole time to put us on the negative timeline, the fallen timeline. That's by
Okay.
lowering humanity's collective vibration. That's by getting us to embrace the Satanism and pedophilia and sexual perversion and blah blah blah. And all of that is negative timeline. It's disrupting the natural energies of humanity and Earth by extension. Okay. And so if they can go back and wipe, say, Tartaria, a positive time in humanity, off the map, that they will.
Yeah.
If one mission that Arkeem Ra remembers is they went back to Renaissance Italy, and there was this inventor who would have been famous and amazing and would have given us like either clean, endless energy or time travel or anti-gravity. One of the three. They're all interrelated, by the way. Okay. And they literally sabotaged him throughout his life. They put time soldiers, sleeper agents in his village to befriend this guy and mess with him, and then eventually murder him in at least one of the timelines. And the way it works like this, I'm going to get to the whole paradox thing, is can you go back in a timeline and murder your own grandfather and then still exist? The answer apparently is yes.
Well, I would think because
What happened?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
What happens is it causes a split timeline,
Okay.
and that's
Oh,
how it alters and shifts the timeline.
So I wrote a screenplay once, which never got developed into a movie, 25 years ago, and it was all about time travel. It involved time travel, a society of time travelers, and that you could exist outside once you had this ability, which it's too long in detail to get into how they got the ability, but once you had it, you existed outside the stream of linear time and could therefore go back in time and meet yourself, bring yourself up into the present.
Sure.
You could do there's all kinds of things.
ETs do that. Yeah.
Total fiction on my part, but
not fiction.
I
not fiction.
But it's not fiction. That's
Not
interesting.
fiction. You know, it's not like you go back and you meet yourself and you explode because of an antimatter. No, it's not that.
Right.
Now, having said that, I'm also told by folks like John Whitberg, okay, who's also part of these programs, and Project Ibis and another related program, and then the secret space programs from there, that the timelines themselves are individual and they are conscious, and they will maybe allow themselves to be altered to a certain point, but if they don't want to be altered, they will prevent you. So then that Stephen King book about trying to stop the JFK assassination, apparently that's based on some semblance of reality.
That was a mini series they did on that, right?
And then they turned into a mini series, yes.
Yeah. Which was pretty good. I didn't read the book.
But I used to be a fan until I found out that he went to a certain island.
Yeah. I have lost all respect for...
He's gone woke. He's gone woke. Disease in the brain, and he's disclosing a lot of the nasty stuff because he knows up close and personal about it, in my opinion. I will say that. I'll call Stevie out as someone who... I still love you, Stevie, but boy, you got a lot to answer for right now and come clean about.
Field guy adds, he forgot the word gadzooks. Doc Brown invented time travel on November 5th, 1955. And so,
we discovered it. Time travel's been around for a long time. Way before humanity came.
Wow. See, and my mind is, I got to tell you, now I want to look and see, are there other passages that talk about the lion laying down with the lamb? Because I look at this.
And Scotty, that's enough right there, man. You know, and I know, between the two of us, this whole time, you never read in Isaiah 11:6, the wolf shall lay down with the lamb. Ever read that. And no one, and before this broadcast, I did not sneak into your house or portal there and change your Bible out.
And I know the passage.
Did I blow your mind tonight? Did I blow your mind tonight, brother?
My mind is currently blown. And by the way, I just flipped through this. I found my marriage certificate to my wife, Rain. So tucked in the pages. That's 20 years sitting in there. But that blows my mind.
Great Scott.
Great Scott. Oh man. So I got to tell you, there's now.
I should have bet you $1 million or something, or like a sword behind you, that was going to be changed. See, I collect swords too.
I've got only one actual historic weapon up there. The rest are all replicas.
Right.
One's a cheap replica. The one right closest to me here.
Yep.
A cheap replica of Aragorn's sword.
Right. Yep.
But then I've got
that's a United Cutlery. Is that United Cutlery?
I don't know where I got that. I got it about 10 years ago, and I got a Sting for my son who's now in his 20s.
Oh, Sting. Yep, that's United Cutlery.
I've got the rapier right next to it, which I used at the Renaissance for rapier, dagger, stage combat. It's a real sword, arms and armor. The one right next to it is the historical weapon. It's got the replica blade and the replica handle, but the basket hilt, it's a Scottish
basket hilt. Yeah.
Scottish basket hilt.
Yep. Oh, don't touch the metal. You're going to get your fingerprints on it 10 years from now.
I know. And I forgot my skin oils on it.
Don't touch the blade.
That's what I tell everybody when I've ever handed them these swords. So I'll wipe it down
Listen,
tonight.
I have
but-
like an Albion like mercenary blade with like some dude's fingerprints on it. I'm definitely not happy.
Oh yeah, I have to oil this down now tonight. Now that I've taken it off the wall, but that is an authentic basket
Mhm.
from an era I studied in a lot of detail. The Battle of Culloden Moor.
Is that like
And
14th century?
while the blade and the
1400s, I
pommel
mean?
and the handle are all replica, the
Mhm.
basket itself, it's got and it's so hard you can't even see it. But underneath here, it's got the little crown and cipher that's scratched in of George Rex, the king, and it's got a stock number stamped into it and things like that. And so that one, I paid quite a bit of money for that about 20 years ago. And
So that's like
that
that's an
one-
actual. That's an actual. That's not like even like a nice functional replica. That's like
That
an
is
actual.
an actual replica. So, and I used to have a bunch more swords, and I sold some off many years ago. But that's what I got on my wall. Yeah. So if there are more swords that appear there in the morning, and I go, where the hell did those come
Yeah,
from?
It's a different
I'll get
timeline.
a hold of you.
So that's what we call timeline jumping right there. That's a material manifestation of the timeline shifted. We jumped the timeline got jumped around us. Okay, and
That's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Because it's stuff that we tuck very neatly into the realm of fiction, and yet in the back of our heads we go, I think that's going to be possible someday. There's something going on here.
for
And
you, especially if you've never had a psychedelic experience, even
Never
if you
had
had a
one.
dream, but for the people who they're seeing, like when we were driving back from Florida to Nevada, coming through New Orleans, so we dropped by New Orleans, to enjoy it, kind of wind down for the conference we just organized. My wife and my one housemate and our service dog were chilling in New Orleans, and we're walking down Bourbon Street, and both our dog and Jaden, they can both see the demons and people have demons and shadow beings stuck out of them, and like Winnie, like you can try to pull her, but she will not go like down the sidewalk near certain people. She's like, "Arr!" Like, no, go this
Yeah.
way, this way. And Jaden's like, why are you? Don't Brian, don't force her. Like, I'm like, why not? Like, what's wrong with walking by those people? And she's like, Jaden says, you don't see the demons on the people the way
Oh.
the dog and I see Winnie and I see the demons. Like that's why. Like, oh, sorry, Winnie. Like, I'm forcing you to go by nastiness.
see, and I don't want to go off on this too much other than to just have fun with the conversation, where I said I've never tried the psychedelics, which I've said one of these days I want to try that. I want to see what the ayahuasca does. I want to blah, 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 blah. But I've had those dreams, those power, what'd you call them? A power dream or something?
Prophetic dreams are super
Prophetic
vivid.
dreams. I've had very vivid dreams. And something I've taught on this show is that generally when you have a dream that is really powerful and it sticks with you, it doesn't fade, that is generally something you can sit back and go, might that be a message that was given to me or something?
Absolutely.
I had a
absolutely.
dream 6 months ago. I had a dream that was so strong and vivid, and I was not observing it. I was in it. I was the person in it. And I looked, and it was Scotland in probably the 1600s.
Like when that sword existed. That's
When that sword existed. I saw a castle, just a single tower, like manor house castle, with the top of it just a little bit hazy in the very light misty rain. So it was overcast and the clouds were low, and I'm walking, and you're wet because you got this misty rain on you. I had long hair and it was dark. that went away a long time ago, but and it was wet, and I'm dressed. I could see, like a leather jerkin.
Yeah,
with the
sounds like a past life recall. Is what that sounds like.
Well, that's what I wondered and I was wounded, and I'm walking.
And then-
there's nobody. I can't.
And
see
that was
anybody.
towards the end, and it was probably towards the end of your life in that life past
Well,
life recall.
I entered
which is
this
consistent.
hall, and there was the woman of the house, and dressed in, just think of the kind of brown dress, and it was a little low cut, and it had a white ruff that was just, not the rough like 16th century, but
like a frock, kind of a frock dress.
Think of the dresses in the early 1700s, late 1600s, and dark hair, and then there were other people around. There were other people that were wounded, and she looked at me, and somebody said something to me off to the side. Where is Kenton? And I looked at him and I said, he fell.
Yeah, he fell. He didn't make it.
Then I dropped, and I was bleeding, and I dropped.
And you died.
They came to and then I woke up. And I've got a good friend, Kenton McCune. And I called him up affectionately since my high school days. He's been known as Muck. And I called him up, and I hadn't talked to him in about 6 months. I said, dude. He goes, what do I have the pleasure or the honor of having you call me today? I said, I got to ask you. I said, you're obviously alive. Are you okay? And he laughed, and he's got a great sense of humor. And I told him about the dream. And he is very much steeped in the conservative fundamentalist Baptist world still. And so I thought he'd scoff, but he was right away like, wow, that's pretty powerful. And so that's how strong that was. And I still remember the details. I remember being in the hall and the old mahogany woodwork that was dark and polished looking because of age and all of that. And I remember all the details. And
that level of detail, that tells you something. And then even for, friends who are Baptists or whatever, even in the times of Yeshua, and people keep, if they're such Bible thumpers, they keep calling him Jesus. It's Hail Zeus. Stop calling him that. Yeshua.
Right.
Okay. Yeshua, right? He, was often asked, are you the spirit of Elijah come again? Are you Ezekiel come again? Are you this person or figure come again? It's because they understood reincarnation. That was written out and taken out by King James and the Freemasons and the Council of Nicaea before that and all that. So, and that's where getting into so-called Christianity, it's such a rough thing when it's kind of like it's been twisted and distorted, and then people are swearing by a distorted version, and they'll go to the mat for it. And it's kind of like, you know what? I don't got time for that. But anyway.
And that's, I'm just
they think all ETs are demons. All aliens are demons.
Oh
my gosh.
Some of them do, yeah. Oh, ET, that's just Satan. And there was the Collins Collective, was it called the Collins Initiative, that ran out of the Pentagon? Who was it? Bald author Nick Redfern wrote a book
Nick Redfern.
called Final Conflict, and this book came out in probably around 2010, 2011, and he wrote about the Collins Elite. They were called the Collins Elite, that operated out of the Pentagon, that had come to the conclusion that all UFOs and all extraterrestrials can really be summed up as demonic activity.
So
this was out of the Pentagon.
Yeah, so for me that's huge disinformation that they're at least putting out there. Now, having said that, sure, there are a lot of ETs that are literally in league with the demonic entities, and that does exist. But to say that all ETs are demonic, that's just as bad as, despite all the amazing work that Dr. Stephen Greer has said, at the end of the Dave Grush Pentagon hearing recently, they ask him, so what do you think, Dr. Greer? He says, well, in my analysis, there are no bad ETs. We're the bad ETs. So here's a Collins initiative out of the Pentagon, supposedly saying, oh, they're all demonic and evil. And then here's Dr. Greer also coming out of a Pentagon press briefing. Oh, there are no bad ETs. It's kind of like, you know what? Be careful with that.
I would imagine you'd have to be. I want to make one more mention in relation to dreams, and I'll get off of that. But I've mentioned to my radio audience on other topics we've talked about that I used to have. Now I'm 60, almost 64 years old. This all happened when I was
64.
I'm waiting for my birthday so I can sing that to my wife. Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64? Well, back in my high school days, to my early college days, I had it wasn't a recurring dream, it was a recurring series of dreams, thematically recurring.
Oh,
And
that's means that if they're recurring, that means you
and
got to pay attention.
it was all military. It was all from Roman period to swashbuckling on the high seas with the high sails ships.
Because that's
It
what your
was
soul wants, Scotty. That's what your soul's wanted. All those lives you wanted
probably
it sounds like to some extent.
Vietnam, Korean War, all of this stuff came. There was the I could have sworn it was the Alamo,
Mm.
but it looked Spanish American. It had the uniforms of the Mexicans and the blue coats with the white crisscrossed bandoleros on their backs in the front and the tall hats. And I was one of a group of guys in that where, and this is long before I knew a lot of detail about the history of this, but there was a group of guys that were defenders of whatever fort that was in my dream. And these Mexican soldiers had us all lined up. And it was almost like the reenactments or the pictures or the paintings you see when they had Crockett and some of the others all lined up in
going
the
after
courtyard
Pancho,
there.
going after Pancho Villa.
Yes. What was his name? Santa Ana. And
Santa Ana, General Santa Ana.
and in this dream, I can't remember now if I was shot or if I was stabbed with a bayonet while standing in this line, and I look down and see the blood, and then I wake up. But I had a whole series of these military dreams. One where I was on a building top. Think of Saigon in 1971, 72. And I'm in green fatigues with the sleeves rolled up and no weapon, but I'm leading on this rooftop. There were walls that came around the rooftop. They were about 3 feet tall. That would, the kind of roof. And
like a concrete, just like a
concrete block
rampart.
Roof, yeah. And I'm down stooping, and I've got a bunch of children with me. They're all Vietnamese children, and they're running with me. And I said, keep down. And on the next building over, which would be like just across the street at the same level, there's a bunch of the guys with the rice hats, and they've got a big anti-aircraft gun up there. Boom, boom, booming away. And I'm running, and that's all I remember in that one. So I had a series.
Let me ask you this. This. Could that have been the Korean War?
That's what I was thinking. It might have been Korean War.
Because what year were you born?
60.
Okay, so what if you died in the Korean War and then came back? Korean War is 1954, right?
Yep.
1960.
I thought about that. I've actually thought that through because
that's a possibility. It's possible.
If I'm seeing a past life, it would have had to have happened before I was I was born, of course. So
to me, it sounds like you're going to you're more the traumatic and end of life periods in these different past lives, and you're getting to revisit them in the dream state. It's one interpretation.
I haven't had those dreams for 40 years.
It sounds like you might not have needed them.
Early college.
It's like you've already fought those battles.
Yeah. But then I had the Scottish one about 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
So, and every now and then something very stark and real and harsh, not harsh by way of describing how realistic it was, how material it seemed at the time. So
visceral.
But, I got to tell you, slipping back to the time travel, if I had the ability to travel time, there are places I want to go, people I want to see. I'd love to go up to the doorstep. When I first read this, I know people have their controversy about Thomas Jefferson. He was still a founding father and a great man, despite slavery.
Sally Jenkins, it's okay. It's fine.
And I would, there was stories I read of him, accounts where at Monticello in Charlottesville, people would there was no phones, and sometimes you got a letter, but people would just show up. Here's the former president of the United States. Well, let's go visit him. And they drive their carriages up there, and he'd entertain them. And I thought I would love to walk up to the front door of Jefferson's home, knock on the door, and say, I'd like to meet Mr. Jefferson, tell him who I am,
Mhm.
where I'm from, and say, would you like to have a cup of tea? You know, or here, I brought some scotch with me, you know? So one of these days, if this stuff can really be done, I would love to, okay, there it is, folks. And there it is, Brian. That's one of my secret things. It's like, okay, I got two secret things I harbor. Number one, there are real genies in a bottle, and I'm going to eventually find one and get my 3 wishes, so I can wish for.
Be careful what you wish for. Those beings are not good.
I did a couple of series on the jinn.
Yeah, they're not.
So
they're not sitting in a bottle waiting to help you.
that's
That's not
right. They're
how it
not there to do that.
works.
There might be
Not there to
some who
do
are
that.
benevolent, but they're like the I've compared them to the Irish Fae, who could be benevolent and happy and joyous, or they could be just the opposite.
Yeah, well,
And
if you
they
treat
could
their
be
land well, if you treat their land
yes.
well, they may be nice to you. If
We
you
did
treat their
that.
land
We
shitty,
had a 40-acre horse ranch when
mm,
we were first married, and we went out to all 4 corners of the ranch, and we put out a little offering.
nice.
It was a coin, a silver coin, a cup of Dixie cup of milk, a couple of fig Newtons, and a slice of apple or something. We put it at the corner of every
Mm-hmm.
at the ranch, just to
Yeah,
say,
it's a
look,
good thing.
I'm not worshiping you. I'm not doing anything, but I
Right.
want you to
It's
know,
thanks,
I want to
gratitude.
recognize that you're here,
Yes.
and I want you to know that we welcome you, and hope you'll favor us.
That's good
And,
practice. That's great practice.
Anyway, bring us some more here. Where do we want to go? What are there other questions here that some of you folks have here for Brian? What is here? Demi says, I personally think time travel doesn't exist, as time is irrelevant. Past, present, and future all exist side by side. All the dimensions exist in one place, one time. How do you respond to that?
I'd say yes and no.
Okay.
You're right in that at the end of the day, time, space, reality as we know it is a construct that is a projection. So to the extent it exists as a projection of higher levels of reality down to physical density. Having said that, you and I, and everyone listens, we're at this level of density and reality, at this level of the game. Time, space is a construct. We have to get up in the morning, you have to make sure to tune in at the right time to watch us, so for practical purposes, you might as well say time does exist, right? Try running your life
Sure.
without a clock or a phone
Sure.
for a week or two and see how that goes, right?
I've experienced
And
that the last couple of days.
right. So what I'd say is, don't, at the end of the day, yeah, we don't need to like worship or fetishize time and space and that concept. But in the meantime, while we're at this level, use it to your advantage to manifest your highest timeline in existence by taking advantage of your perceived time or lack thereof.
Let me bring this back to the topic earlier of the Montauk project. They were developing things amongst many other things, apparently. And did they, or were they keystones in the development of time travel? And I want to keep relating it back to this.
Yes.
And therefore, can you you can't find it in the phone book, I'm sure. Like, let's see.
No, let me explain. Let me explain what happened. What happened is they went from Brookhaven National Labs. Here, let me share my screen again here.
Yeah.
Because this will definitely help.
That's what those big circular complexes.
Well, those are look like particle accelerator colliders.
Is that what that is?
Yeah, well, those circle things, like that's what CERN does. They accelerate particles around circular rings, and that allows them to make them go faster and faster.
So how big
and then
is
they
that?
collide them. Well, let's see.
200 feet, 2,000 feet, you're at right there.
2,000 feet from there to there. So that's at least like
a couple hundred feet.
3,000 feet across.
Oh, I see what you're saying. That scale, right?
From here to there, it's
you're
2,000
looking at
feet. That's 2,000 feet.
You're looking at something that's good 3/5 of a mile across.
Yep. Yeah. And then so imagine it around.
Then a
And then,
smaller one
and
down
then the
below.
smaller one there, right. And then they moved over to Camp Hero on the east end of Long Island. Okay, so they moved from Brookhaven here, the center part, over to the very far east end of Long Island. And then this is where you have the infamous Sage radar tower. Okay, that is often depicted. But this was then apparently, this is supposed to be a then abandoned army base after World War II, the very east end of Long Island, which at that point, Montauk Village was a then sleepy fishing town, the 40s and 50s. And this would be like a good place, you would think, because you also have Plum Island nearby where they do all sorts of crazy, terrible experiments. I've heard of the Plum Island monster and Lyme disease may have come from.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, right. And it's all tied together. So it's a very far end of Plum Island. Okay, so you could have the scientists and Lucky Mucks accessing it from New York City, but it's accessible from a major population center. But if you open up some crazy, terrible interdimensional doorway, at least you're not in Manhattan.
Sure.
Okay? And so I'll show the Sage radar tower. So this is shown in a lot of the documentaries of Montauk. It is where they're experimenting, hitting people like psychotronic warfare and frequencies.
I've got that here. If I put this up for a second, that's what I've got in the background of this picture for the graphic for tonight's show.
Yes. There you go. And I stopped sharing my screen. So what they were doing is they were basically taking children who they were screening for psychic abilities, strapping them into something known as the Montauk trip chair, which supposedly was one of these piloting chairs recovered from one of the Roswell crash sites. Because the ETs, they pilot their craft with telepathy. They merge, mind meld with their craft and fly them. They don't use like a stick and rudder. Okay. And so they were taking that chair, putting kids into it, abusing them, putting them in torture, mind control.
Here, let's get these small children to experiment with.
Because what they're finding is that adults weren't psychically powerful enough. It wasn't working on the adults. And even the children, the vast majority of children, they stuck in that chair to open up a portal on the wall to go back in time or wherever, died. Because they didn't have the ability, and they died trying to manifest it, and it killed them. And so this was one reason why so many people died in the Montauk trip chair, is they were being forced to do things that they weren't meant to do and couldn't do. And so out of the thousands of kids that they strapped in that chair and died, only several, tens or however many they found could actually have the ability activated to open up portals that were stable enough. And so Montauk 1.0 was apparently them figuring out and going through a lot of kids how to even open up a doorway and go somewhere where you wanted to go. Then 2.0 was now they're actually doing the time travel shenanigans, going back to medieval Italy, erasing amazing geniuses who would have brought us amazing inventions to this timeline, messing up our Bibles and whatnot, right? And then Montauk 3.0 is one of the kids was strapped into the chair, and because they were told, hey, you can open up a doorway in time and space. You can imagine a pile of gold. Well, he said, I'm going to imagine a monster that's going to come and kick the shit out of all the nasty rapist, tormentor, child abusers here. And so he summoned Junior, the monster psychic Sasquatch energy being that basically was like invisible and tore up and killed a lot of the perpetrators and did not harm the kids. And then for a certain time, Arkeem Ra, Joseph Powell, and several others of the time soldiers, the kids who've been being abused and made to do all this stuff and being strapped into the chair and going back in time, that was Montauk 3.0. They had free reign briefly of Camp Hero to try to undo the damage and do positive time missions to undo the damage. And then apparently the government came and raided the base and took it back over. And then after a while, they just flooded the base, and then they moved to like the Presidio underneath San Francisco and
Yeah.
also under New Orleans and all sorts of deep underground military bases, Pine Gap in Australia, you name it.
Wow. Demi asks this question: what are your general thoughts on DNA
Oh yeah,
testing companies?
It's harvesting the DNA for the
Well,
bioinformatics. One,
and
to
that's a
figure out our
follow
weaknesses
that part.
to do biological weapons, or two, to find out who's got certain DNA marker attributes that they're looking for. In particular, uh, you know, R negative, Rh negative,
Mm-hmm.
because that tends to be more Anunnaki, Nephilim blood lines.
Wrote
And
about
then
that a little
anyone,
bit.
yeah, and anyone who's got like hybridized DNA, like reptilian or whatever, people who have more propensity for psychic ability because there are certain Irish, Scottish lines, Selkie blood, certain Native American blood, like Lemurian, Atlantean bloodlines that they want. Like,
Right.
that's why one reason why they directed an energy weapon to Hawaii and took away the
Wow.
kids.
Well, what was I going to say about that? I did, well, my wife and I did our DNA back in 2014 or 15 with Ancestry, and came back, and I didn't think anything of it, and I haven't had anybody come knocking on my door for anything yet. So,
Well, I mean, don't
so
expect to. When they harvest the DNA bioinformatics of millions of people, it's a larger harvesting and screening. And then even if they did target you and find something interesting in you, if you have children or grandchildren,
I do have
not to
children.
plant thoughts in the other side's heads, but that's how they already think. I've studied how they think so I can fight them, right? Organize against them.
Right,
They're going to think to more maybe target your children or grandchildren. I know,
right. See, and that's
or yeah,
interesting. I don't have any grandkids yet, but I got 6 kids, so be interesting. So, this stuff, it is so. It's not things I haven't heard something about before, but it's so fresh to me in the sense that my mind is still grappling with okay, when we're done with this show, I'm going to go make a sandwich and I'm going to go watch the news. And
you're going
tomorrow
to
I got
find
to
another Bible. You're going to find another Bible that you have
Yeah,
in
I'm
your
going to go look
possession.
for it because I got a
And you're
few
going to
of them
say, what
around
the
here.
heck? And then you're going to call your friends from seminary or whatever.
I
like,
am.
What the
Hey,
heck?
go look up Isaiah 11:10 and tell me what it
6,
says.
11:6.
11:6. I mean, yeah, I
Yep.
got it right here. So, still, my mind is so blown by that. That's crazy. That's just craziness. That's the kind of stuff. What that you just demonstrated to me, and I think in these terms because I'm a visual person. That's the kind of stuff you read about in a book or you watch in a movie where somebody has a light that's turned on for him and he goes,
Your mind is
"You are
bending right
fucking
now.
kidding me."
Your
Yeah,
mind is like,
it is. It is. So, and yeah, I'm gonna put it out there. I want to time travel, but I want to be able to come back.
You already did. I just told you right there. I just showed
Oh
you.
yeah, well there it
Be
is.
careful what you
Yes,
ask for. Be careful what you
yes,
ask for. Time travel at this level apparently is not good. Apparently there are guardians and keepers of
sure.
time, and they'll allow it to a certain extent because even with all the shenanigans and terrible crap that they've done,
Sure.
overall humanity is learning from these terrible experiences and benefiting and growing, and it is
I
leading us to a higher timeline.
I would guarantee those guardians. I won't do nothing bad. I just want to go back and take some pictures and bring them back with me. And people say, "Wow, you staged a really cool set there." But my intent would not be bad at all, unless I wanted to start a new Robert's Lines somewhere. But my
Oh
wife
boy.
would probably have a problem with that. So but yeah, all flippancy aside, it is so appealing to think that possibility is there. And I know what I'm saying now has nothing to do with really digging into the reality of this, meaning the consciousness portion of it and the seriousness of it. It has to do with those latent not even late.
let me blow your mind even
Oh,
more.
here we go. Here we go.
Apparently, with time travel, it is a thing that ETs will go back and they'll see significant events in our past or future, and they'll try to be invisible about it and really go back, not altering it, because that is a principle, is not to alter the timeline.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I'd rather go back invisible because I don't want to have to explain myself unless I can go have lunch with Thomas Jefferson at his house.
right,
So,
right. Well, as long as it doesn't affect the timeline, it might be okay.
Yeah.
And then
so
you get
I would imagine going and having lunch with him and saying, look, I'm from 250 years in the future, would alter something. Who knows what he would do as the futurist that he was, if he'd known.
It's possible. You never know. Having said that, people like the skilled remote viewers at the Farsight Institute, they're able to remote view in a way back in time, or because time and space in this case don't exist. They're able to connect with Thomas Jefferson, and then they're literally able to converse with Thomas Jefferson.
Sure.
And then you might ask, and then you might say, well, how do they talk to someone who's dead? And then apparently their soul supposed to be in heaven or reincarnated. Well, when you're interacting with people in certain realms of existence, it's beyond time and space. So,
That's it.
So Thomas Jefferson might be reincarnated already here or on another planet or in both places at once. And you can still remote view and speak with him in his Thomas Jefferson vibration.
Or are they remote viewing him in his home in 1792?
Exactly. That's what they're doing. They're remote viewing him back in that time. It would potentially or energetically remote viewing, and they could be speaking with his higher self, right? And then his conscious self back in that time period isn't aware, or that he could be aware. And it all depends. It's
maybe
so
he's already been aware.
Well, some of these people, great historical figures, they talk about time travelers from time to time.
Yeah.
This is
that's fascinating to me, and I hate to have pulled the whole conversation into that because it so fascinated me and gripped me tonight, especially because of the mind-blowing bit that it's God, there are things about this that are so fascinating, and so I'm so curious about, and I want to know more about. I want to talk to people who've done it. It's like
I could bring someone to the show if you like.
Let
me bring some other people who've been part of these programs on your
Let's
show.
do it.
What's great about having me on, I think, is I'm able to kind of summarize it and give it to you as coherent, cogently as I can in a little. But having the people who have recall of being there and done that, the good, the bad, and mostly ugly, I think will benefit you and your viewers.
If you can line that up, I would be more than interested to have some of those.
You give me a show date. You give me a show date, and I'll go. I'll find.
You know what?
We've
got somebody coming in on Friday, all next week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, are when I do my shows.
I'll find someone.
All next week, I'm open. I don't have anybody else lined up after this Friday, and so if you can find somebody, we'll come in. I can bring 9 to 12 people on live all at once. So
I just try to bring 1 or 2 people because
that's fine.
I like to let people have the chance to tell their testimony.
Yeah,
but I can get like 2 people where they remember each other and their testimonies corroborate. That's the best.
Yes,
I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna quote a line from one of my favorite movies, as cliche as it is. Louis, it looks like this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. And by the way, I had a psychic that said they connected with him for me, and he gave a greeting, to me about I don't even remember what he said. And psychics, you go, oh, okay, cool, yeah. Did that really happen? And but the person was very trustworthy.
I'll say it absolutely can. Absolutely. Yeah. I spoke with, I believe, when my father through a psychic after he died from the bio cocktails last November. And she was picking up on things like about my father's energy and describing things about him to me that I felt like, yeah, she sounds like she's talking to him, right? And she told him, she told me, or he told me through her, right? He's speaking through
Mhm.
her, saying that a lot of because I was the black sheep out of the family. Like I was the
Yeah.
eldest of the three sons, and mom, dad, the three sons. I was like 9/11 inside job, blah blah blah. Don't take the cocktails. Do not. ETs are real. Angels and demons are real. Get right with God. Da da da. Like that's nice, Brian. Go whatever. You know, and but apparently, what he was saying through Kiera to me was that towards the end of his life, and did not expect the things to take him out like that fast and all that, and then
Yep.
two, the things that I'd been saying all my life about the tinfoil hat conspiracy stuff, he was beginning to
Yes.
realize that what I was saying was true. But every
Yeah.
time he got to that final conclusion of, wait a second, they are trying to depopulate us, and these are horrible satanic people in power. We do need to. He shied away in horror and fear. Like, no way. Like, how could he
Wow.
have been the American dream, raise a family, all this, been a success story, da da da. And then that was the truth at the end of his life. No way. So, yeah,
Wow.
it can't happen.
Well, I am looking forward to talking with you again. Steph Cuervo Queen has come into the room, and Steph, yeah, you missed a good one tonight. It is on. It'll be on the archive as soon as we're done. And the good news is, Brian himself has volunteered to come back with some more people. Brian's going to come back with friends,
That's
and
right.
maybe next week, as soon as we can get something lined up, we're going to talk about some more of this stuff in a lot more detail. So, Brian, I appreciate you coming on tonight and talking about this stuff. I appreciate you blowing my fucking mind. And because now I got to deal with that tonight.
Oh, there's more. Just wait till the next show.
I'm sure. Blow my mind all you want. I am wide open for that.
It's wild. It's
So
crazy.
we will talk again very soon. So thanks for being here. I appreciate it. You have a good night, and we'll talk to you another time very soon.
Thank you, Scotty. Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
Brian. Good night. All right, everybody else, guess what? It's that time. If you missed tonight's show, you missed stuff that blew my mind tonight. And of course, you have to be. I still haven't experienced some of the things we've talked about firsthand, but there was enough there that it piqued the things I've already known, the things I was already curious about, and it has put me in a really weird spot. And so I got to think about these things for a while. So thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. We're going to get out of here. We'll see you next time. Have a good night and live long and prosper.